right. Welcome back to another installment of By Any Means.
By any means.
Yeah. I know, Bridget, don't laugh at us. Guys, we're going to get it sooner or
It's good. It's good. We're working through it.
Listen, folks, if you haven't noticed, the lovely Bridget is back. And guess what? You're going to see a lot more of her.
Yeah.
Because we like her so much. We asked her to stay. So, hi, Bridget.
Hey. We've been getting okay. Thank you for having me.
Dope. See, I knew you really have been watching a lot of college shows, huh, Derek?
Yeah.
A different world. Hey, listen. So we got an interesting topic today, right? So last week we had somebody comment on our videos and on the episode and asked us, could we talk about how we turn your passion into your paycheck? Or another way to say it is, are you willing to how do you leave your paycheck in pursuit of your passion? It's a sticky subject, right? Because there's no real right or wrong way to do it. You know what I mean? And I just thought it would be an interesting conversation to have. I mean, apparently a lot of people are going through it, especially right now during COVID-19. You're sitting at home trying to learn a new skill set, you know what I mean? Or something, just trying to figure out your life and what you want to do. If you're like me, I'm 35 years old, you know what I mean? I feel like I've gone through my midlife crisis and now I know exactly what I want to do and I'm pursuing it. You know what I'm saying? But people have that. People are in that frame of mind right now. So I figure it'd be a good conversation to have. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Bridget.
I was like, you're gonna go. Okay, you didn't go. So this is a heavy topic, right? Because I think I'm in my 30s, right? I'm 30, 35, 36. I'm 36. So I'm 36, and I think once you get into your mid 30s, you forget how old you actually are. I'm 30 something. But yes, I'm 36, and I think about people who are like my age and kind of the same space as me, and I'm watching, right? I'm seeing what everybody's doing around me. And a lot of us are moving into that space of wanting to move into more of our passion as opposed to just chasing a paycheck or just getting our paycheck. But we also have responsibilities. And so our responsibilities tell us that we also need a paycheck to be able to pay for all of the way that we're living and maintain our quality of life. So for me personally, I'm in a space where I've tried to marry the two. So I've tried to put myself in positions, as long as I'm going to be working for other people, especially when I transitioned out of the military, to be getting a paycheck in things that I'm passionate about. So if I'm going to be working for somebody else, at a minimum, it could be in something that I love. So I love leadership development. I love training. So in that, I looked for or have kind of connected to paycheck opportunities more so, especially in my 30s, that were going to be able to be passion filled. But the reason I did that was definitely for an exit strategy, to give myself the space to kind of, I hope my job won't watch these one days, but the space to kind of mess up or learn, right? Potentially on somebody else's dime and somebody else's time. And so I know that entrepreneurship isn't necessarily for everyone, right? And I'm not saying that you can't do passion and paycheck, like I said, at the same in the same, they can't live in the same space. But my kind of is trying to figure out, okay, how do I transition all of this so that, again, I'm not just working on somebody else's goals, but I can begin to work on my goals. And I want to be able to employ people as well. So I don't know. That's kind of what I got for now. It'll be interesting to see how this conversation flows tonight and what we all got to say.
Yeah, I know, right? You make solid points, right? It's like for me personally, I took the leap a long time ago. Matter of fact, I took the leap a couple times. Like I had a couple false starts.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about entrepreneurship, man. I jokingly say they're false starts, but the truth of the matter is they were learning experiences, right? And the funny thing, I'm very spiritual, right? So for me, it's like, God put me through certain things because he knew I needed to learn certain skill sets in order to do ultimately what I'm supposed to be doing in life, So, I call them false starts, but I appreciate them. And I love the fact that I went through it because it taught me so many different things about marketing, for example, about how to pitch to investors, for example, about how not to pitch to investors. You know what I'm saying? About how to put together your actual pitch deck, right? I've worked in management. I've worked in finance. I've worked in personal finance. I was a registered investment advisor at one point. I did B2B sales, B2C sales. I did direct sales. So the equivalent of door-to-door sales. Like I've literally walked into a home and 4 hours later walked out with a check for $75,000. So I've done all types of things in my career. And it's all prepared me for this one thing. And yeah, I believe that while there are some people who find their purpose, who know exactly what they want to do and they love it and they are passionate about it and they can earn a paycheck while doing it. There's some people like me that have always seen corporate America as what you said, Bridget. It's like, this is my space to come in and learn and make mistakes and not like lose a bunch of money doing it. You know what I mean? Like for me, it was, how do I learn how to run a successful business? Like how is it supposed to work? What do the operations look like? What is the chain of command? Is it a flat, organizational structure or what? Like, so that's kind of my overall experience in a nutshell, and we'll get a little bit deeper into a little bit later. But what about you, Derek?
Yeah. I mean, hey, I'm just going to give us a shout out. I think we are providing a lot of good, positive information to the community at large and specifically. I love this topic too, because it is a passion within my own heart and my own life. And I know it's a passion for us too. And I think that's a living testament to where God has brought us all, because we all come from different but interesting backgrounds, and look at us now. So like we were joking before the show, look at God.
Look at him.
Look at him.
Won't he do it?
Won't he will. We about to take a church.
Don't get me started, because
it's about to be a praise session today. It's about to be a praise session. Praise and worship. No, but I am passionate about this. I know we all are too, based off of where we are. This kind of goes back to Bridget's point, where we're in our 30s and we're at a point where, and we kind of spoke to this in last week's episode in regards to, is college worth it in 2020, where we started to talk about ownership and concurrent or in parallel things that you can do to gain skill sets. And I'll swing that to how, to your point, Kelvin, technically, it's funny, we're sitting right next to each other right here, Kelvin. So Kelvin, Derek, we both came from where we came from. We both went to Hampton. We connected there. We stayed connected to this day. And Kelvin went into finance, banking, the financial market. Derek went into public sector and private and public entities. And in that, I think we all knew that wasn't it. And that's what I want to get into in this conversation too. Like, it's funny when things reveal themselves. Like, it didn't take long for me in my public sector career to notice, oh, wow, I'm not feeling super fulfilled like I even was in Hampton. Like Bridget, you and I, we were student leaders. And what that did is it afforded us, and many other organizations too, like Kelvin, I know you were in different ones as well. We diversified our activities, our extracurriculars, if you will. And at Hampton, that was very important because that opened the doors to understand that concept of don't put all your eggs in one basket. Hit something here, hit something here. And what that does, and this resonates with what you said, Kelvin, you may have taken that leap to get out of the corporate structure earlier than most, and got into different opportunities, which became lessons learned for you and opportunities to gain and increase your skill set, your skill sets, your toolkit, broaden your portfolio, with the understanding that at some point, and earlier for you, Kelvin, that you're going to create your own. And we've been saying this economic empowerment, and we need our own. At this particular juncture, we need our own, period.
Right.
And Bridget, I know you that speaks well to your points too, in terms of needing our own, and also like that validation factor that I mentioned too on last episode as well. Because quite frankly, we've gathered all this experience now. We were we were the special creatures that God made us originally. And then we had all this experience, college, different job opportunities, different careers. We've networked. Guess what? Now it is time. We need our own. We're going to create our own, and it's going to be dope. I don't need to use any sweet articulate word there. What we are going to create is dopeness, because we are dope. And yeah, no, Kelvin, I'm just going to tell you, man, look, I may have stayed in corporate America structure, but just like you, and within this structure, what did I do? Instead of jumping out, I created hobbies, knowing that these hobbies would eventually become multiple streams of income factors, right? So whether it was things that I was doing within a church, things that I was doing within Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, whether it's the voluntary services that I was doing, whether it was the work in different capacities in my corporate career, looking at the business structure in the private sector, in the public sector. And guess what? Now my portfolio has expanded, my experience has grown, and I can take all those bits and pieces that I've learned over time. That's all I've been doing. I've been observing. Oh, you said what? You said this? Oh, okay, cool. Now I can take that forward into our own, and now it's time to build our own. This is gonna be a good conversation.
Yeah. So look, the reason why I called it the episode, well, first of all, working the third shift. When you think about the third shift, you think overnight shift. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the hardest shift to work.
Right.
And I go back to, by any means, right? When I was let's just say back in 2011, when I had a ton of responsibility on my back. I had two jobs. I was working at the bank during the day, right? Managing a bank. I ain't gonna say which bank it is, but go look at LinkedIn, you'll see it.
Right. No names.
Right. So I was managing the bank during the day.
Bank.
And right. And then at night, on Friday and Saturday night, I was working from 11:30 to 7:30 in the morning as a concierge at the most expensive hotel at the expensive apartment building in Arlington. I'm talking 1 bedrooms for like $2,800 a month.
Wow.
So yeah. So, when I think of third shift, I think about how hard it was to do that shift after working a whole week, 45 to 55 hours a week, and then going to work overnight Fridays and Saturday nights, but you kind of got to do what you got to do. I mean, it's to the point where I was the little 5-hour energies. I was drinking like 2 of those a night just to stay awake. Keep in mind, I only have one kidney. I only got one kidney. I donated a kidney to my uncle back in 2009. So 2008, I'm sorry. So I was drinking those things, and one night my back was just hurting like crazy. I didn't know what the heck was going on. I literally had to stop and go to the hospital. It was like, you're putting a lot of strain on your kidney, brother. You ain't got but one. So when I think about how hard that third shift is and what I went through, through those, 5 or 6 months when I was, working both of those jobs, that I feel like that's how hard it is to have to start a business while working full time. Like it's one of those things where, and I go through this now, and I've been technically in my own element since 2017. But it's like, it's very, very, very hard. You wake up thinking about what you got to do next. You go to sleep thinking about what you got to do next. You dream about what you got to do next. When you're supposed to be spending time with your family, you're thinking about what you got to do next. Yeah. Like, I feel like it's that same type of kind of stress that you have on yourself, but you know, it's kind of what you have to go through in order to get where you want to be, which is to be able to build your business to a point where you can hire somebody to come in and do the heavy lifting for you, right? Maybe a couple people, so they're not like burning themselves out. But you got to get yourself to that point first, and that takes. It's like that old picture that says, you know, what you see, what people think an overnight success is the tip of the iceberg, but what they don't see is that big, huge chunk of ice that's below the surface. And I feel like, you know, before you even think about turning your passion into your paycheck, you got to kind of search within yourself and figure out whether you're willing to put the work in to get where you need to be. Because truth be told, I went from 2017 when I started the business until that was in like June or July. I didn't start earning money until late December, early January. So I had gone at least a half a year without making anything. It literally was money going out, purchasing equipment, paying bills, you know, reading up on principles of photography and translating that into videography and then cinematography and understanding lighting for the mood and all these types of things. You know what I mean? It's not just pointing the camera and shooting. It's way more than that. And I had to learn, you know what I mean? So yeah, I just feel like before anybody even thinks about jumping off the bridge and going full steam ahead like I did, I'm a out of the frying pan in the fire kind of guy, but that's because I know I work best under pressure. Like the more pressure I'm under, the better I perform. But you got to know yourself. What do you guys think about, you know, and because I know we all got other stuff going on outside of, you know, I know you guys are still working full time. So, you know, how do you feel about the work that you got to put in and kind of the precautions that you're kind of taking and what you're kind of going through in your mind before you decide to really, you know, take that full leap and quit your job?
So one of the things that kind of popped up for me as you were talking is just like the idea of fear. And I know for myself, I've dealt with it, right? Like from what you're saying, as you were talking, I was like, well, he's probably somebody who's a risk taker, who might be someone who's willing to take a risk. And all of us are not. Some of us are risk averse. Some of us, you know, on the spectrum of what is it when like you're signing up for your investments, it says like high risk, low risk, medium, you know, medium risk. You know, some of us fall somewhere on that spectrum. I probably fall somewhere in the medium risk, where I'm willing to sometimes sacrifice stability, but not completely, you know, in order to do things. But I'm not willing to totally let it go. Like I can't totally move into a space of instability, because for me, I don't know, I'm a Libra. So there's this, that balance is important for me. So I need to know that even if I'm trying something over here, I can pivot over there, but that creates sometimes a space of indecision. I'm teetering back and forth between, and again, I've been able to be able to work I've been able to finagle my paycheck into my passion. Those are things that are happening concurrently, but I do know there's other things that I want to do in the passion space. But sometimes it's just fear that kind of is scary, because all of that now is like the weight of all of that is on my shoulders. When it comes to connecting to your passion, you're really connecting with some of the deepest parts of you. So then there's like work and I talked about this on the like there's work that we got to do. So now you're connecting to your passions. If you're connecting to something you're passionate, that means, I tell my students all the time, your life is an answer to one of the world's problems. So now I'm connecting to a passion that's potentially the answer to one of the world's problems. And you saying that I got to like potentially not be stable while I'm doing it, or some of those other factors, or even just the mental load, or, you know, the energy that you have to put out, it's a lot. And sometimes it's just easier to just do what is kind of status quo. And again, I don't think everybody's built for any of these areas. I think whatever works for you is what works for you. So I'll say that for 100%. However, for me, it's been like, there have been times where I've been more nervous, you know, about what awaits on the other side, like that, almost that fear of succeeding, and just kind of letting it all go and letting it all happen, and, you know, taking all those ups and downs, and but it being kind of held by me. That's a lot. It's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because, you know, there is that there are those elements of fear and risk acceptance or
And
risk
doubt.
management, and doubt as well. And it's funny because I actually am a risk assurance manager, so I deal with risk every day. And it's funny, from an internal controls, review, audit, risk management, assurance standpoint, I've learned so much about that translates to everything in life. Like, everything has controls. So it's really been a blessing to kind of go into that career field, because I can bring that into every aspect of my life, which is good. But there's also bad. You spoke to this, Bridget, because there's a sliding scale, there's a spectrum. So you don't want to be on either side of the extreme. So I know my wife would even say, like, yeah, you probably don't need that particular control, or you're managing this risk not how I would particularly manage it. So people take things differently, but it's interesting because we do have the fear factor, we do have the factor of risk and doubt, but I think, I forget which one of you mentioned this, but it's important. You really do have to understand who you are.
You do.
That's very important, because yes, people are always trying to find what their purpose is. And I wanted to speak to that because a purpose-driven life is important and is key. It gets you to what you just alluded to, Bridget. And I like that. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna note that. As far as you telling your students and your mentees about your life, your purpose-filled life is going to end up being the result of one of the world's solutions.
Yeah, the answer to one of the world's problems. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in order to get there, you know, people talk about, look, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? I'm here trying to find my purpose. Your purpose is going to smack you in the face one day. And quite frankly, what I realized too, now that I'm in my 30s, is that from all the work that I was doing, it's funny, the stars were aligned. God was there the whole time. Like you just said, like both of you, we just said it, like everything. And we talked about this natural selection. Some people are going to make it, some people aren't. And no matter what path we choose, it's still going to ebb and flow. And as there's going to be ups and there are going to be ups and downs in life, but it's how you manage that. And just live through it. Bridget and I, we're still in our actual careers. We're still full-time, but we're also not putting our eggs in one basket, in the sense of whether it's voluntary work or whether it's literally doing something on the side, a side hustle. And then also just different crafts and needs and hobbies that we're doing. So we're multifaceted. And at some point in your life, you're going to create, all that's going to come together, and it's going to comprehensively create your opportunity. Kelvin, you jumped out earlier, but the same thing happened for you, because you were always doing multiple things, and it just comes to fruition and comes together like no other. We couldn't have ordained that. That's God. But the breadcrumbs are all there, because somehow everything that you do and dabble in is a piece. And Kelvin, you alluded to this. It's a piece of you in that purpose, that purpose-driven life that will take you to the answer to some of the world's problems.
I have a thought on that too.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So another thing that I tend to talk to people about, and this might be students, this might be adults, it just depends on the situation, is about purpose. And I think sometimes we make purpose, sometimes it's really lofty thing. Yeah. And it's not. It's not, right? Purpose isn't super lofty. Purpose isn't something that we haven't attained yet. purpose is something that we're living in legitimately every single day, you know. And so I always tell people to think about the thing that, I'm sorry, I'm like teaching, I guess, at this point, but think about the thing that gives you the most joy when you're doing it. So when you're having a conversation with somebody, or you're out, you know, working on something or doing something, using your hand, like, what is that thing that legitimately gives you a level of joy that you could get lost in it? And for me, right, it's talking to people, it's having interactions with people where I can see those lights come on. So it's seeing them in the conversation. I'm a coach, right? Like I like to coach. I'm like, people coach sports. I coach people. So, you know, seeing that light come on and them thinking about something different, or believing that they can do something, or right, that has always been something that since I was little, since I was young, it's been something that's been in me. So I've been operating in purpose since I was a child. And I think sometimes, again, we make purpose such a big and unattainable thing that we're being hard on ourselves for not, you know, feeling like we're carrying out our purpose, when really our purpose is the day-to-day things that we're doing. Are so rooted in purpose. And if we're tuned in, tapped in, mindful, connected, we'll be able to see how those dots connect. We'll be able to see how all that stuff is kind of happening. And we'll be able to define it and put more meat to that purpose, you know, day to day, adding, right? Because, and I think purpose and passion are really almost synonymous a little bit to me. But I think as we're working in our passions and in our purpose, the things that we're passionate about, right? Like that, we're in our sweet spot. It's like literally being, you know, playing basketball. I don't know a lot about basketball, but, you know, playing basketball, but hearing that swoosh, like every time when that, you know, that basket goes in that, whatever, the ball goes in the basket, and you're just hitting that, you're hitting that three. Like that's how being in your purpose and walking in your passion feels. It feels like literally every time you're just hitting it every time. So I don't know. I try to be really thoughtful and mindful about the days and the times that that's happening for me, even though from a business perspective or from a paycheck perspective, I'm not necessarily making exactly the amount that I want to make, or doing or what I want to do 1,000%, or impacting everybody. But I don't want to miss the micro moments either.
So for me, it's funny because for me, I feel like purpose and passion are two different things. And I think you said that, but I feel like just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean that it's your purpose. For example,
That's fair.
Well, just for me, it's like I'm passionate about playing football, but I didn't think it was possible for me to make it to the NFL, which is why I ended up at Hampton. Because I could have took a partial football scholarship. I had a couple offers, right? But I was like, you know what? I want to go to school for academics and graduate from a prestigious university, because I don't believe that at the time I was 5'6", but on my stat sheet it said I was 5'7", 165, but I was more like 5'6", 150, 155. But it was like, I don't believe I'm going to make it to the NFL at this size. So, you know, while I'm passionate about football, I feel like that's not really what I'm supposed to do. So for me, it's like it's two different things. And, you know, I like to associate, and I think that's an important distinction, right? Because I feel like I like to associate my passion is more closely related to the gifts that God gave me. I feel like in my mind, I'm passionate about the things that come easy to me because I don't really have to work hard for it, right? For example, shooting, video, editing, acting, writing, that kind of creative stuff I never knew existed until later on in my life. But then once I figured it out, it was like, oh, I can do this in my sleep. And I'm passionate about it because it's fun. It brings me joy, to your point, Bridget. You know what I'm saying? Like it brings me joy. But I feel like my purpose is the whole economic empowerment strategy, which is to disrupt the banking industry, because that's something I had no control over. I had no idea. Like if it were up to me, I probably would have made a career out of banking. You know what I mean? I tried to make a career out of going up the corporate ladder at T-Mobile. You know what I mean? I even considered the whole independent sales thing and worked for a couple companies. I was good at it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But I was never able to sustain that performance because I wasn't passionate about it. It was just, it was just something that I could do that I was good at. But then once I did it and rose to the top, set a couple records, like I just, okay, I did that already. I'm good. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to do it anymore. So, I feel like I didn't know why I was like that until now, where all of those, it was like, God was telling me, this is like, I get it, you're good at it, but this is not what I want you to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this glass ceiling over your head, or I'm gonna shut this door, you know what I'm saying? Or I'm gonna do this. And where another person might have felt defeated, right? Another person might have felt like, oh, I'm a failure or whatever the case may be. For me, I've always bet on myself. I've never, not once, bet on myself and lost. So every time I bet on myself and I go in head first, I win. And I think, to your point, Bridget, I'm very risky for that reason. I've never, once I literally, like not when I halfway, one foot in, one foot out, but when I all the way bet on myself, I've never ever come out, in a loss. I've always come out on top. So I think that's where the risk part comes from.
And you're passionate, sounds like.
Yeah, but again, now my passion is now in line with my purpose, because with everything that's happened in the world, knowing that I have a solution that could fix so many issues, and it's all about me executing that, I feel like there's even more pressure on my shoulders to do it, because I'll feel like a failure. And I don't lose. I'm so competitive. I won't even lose to myself. So I feel like, while passion and purpose might be two different things, when they do come together, it's a powerful, fulfilling thing, because you wind up putting all your energy into it, and that energy is attractive, it's magnetic, and you attract good people like Derek and Bridget. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've tried to put a podcast together for the past at least 3 years. and here you guys are. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like don't necessarily, like Mark Cuban has a book, don't I think it's something like, don't bet on your passion, or don't quit your job for your passion, or something like that. You know what I'm saying? But I guess I want to read it. I haven't, but for me, just based off the title, what that means is you got to make sure you have a plan. You know what I mean? You can't shit without a plan, because I've done that and it didn't work.
But so,
go ahead.
It's funny because again, I love this conversation, and I love our conversation. Y'all are some beautiful people, but and so are you, viewers.
Nah, that's all, Bridget.
That's true. No, so that being said, two things, like, and Bridget, you alluded to this, and Kelvin, you spoke all in it. So living in passion, like, as much as I was in church, I heard so many sermons about living in purpose. I'm sorry. Living in purpose. As many times I sat in church services and heard sermons regarding walking in purpose, right? A purpose-driven life. Like, it, even in the midst of being a youth and adolescent and young adult, like, it didn't click. Like, I understood it in that context, but not literally to my life and actually what my purpose was. Because, to your point, Bridget, I was like, oh, it's this lofty thing this is hard to obtain. I know at some point I'm going to get to it, but literally every step of my walk, I was walking in purpose, divinely ordained by God. And when it clicked, in my 30s, I'm not gonna lie, in my 30s, when it clicked, because it registered that, oh my gosh, like, it literally, that's why I said it's gonna slap you in your face, because God literally said, you've been walking in your purpose. I ordained your steps. I ordered your steps to have you do these things that way. So don't worry about that glass ceiling that happened. Those rejections, don't worry. It happened for a purpose. For your specific purpose, and it's all going to come together for the good. So walking in purpose is divine, and it's funny because it's going to hit you at some point. It's going to come faster for some than others. But beyond that, going back to the point of knowing thyself, that's really key, because there's a lot that goes into understanding oneself, self-actualization, introspection, because there's the socialization that we've talked about. So your family, your peers, your community, those things are important, and especially family, because one of those fear factors revolves around your responsibilities. So we're parents. We got responsibilities. We got obligations. We got houses that haven't been paid for yet. I don't have the deed to my house yet. Okay, so that's a significant expense or bill that I got to cover. So there are responsibilities that we got to take care of. So those go into that risk acceptance formula, and the fear factor. But when you think about kind of the way some of us grew up, when you don't grow up with a silver spoon in your mouth, it's hard for your parents to get up out of that too. Mm-hmm. So even if you yourself have gotten out of that, then you may have an obligation that you have put upon yourself to give back to. And that's also a critical factor in knowing whether or not, or when to actually jump out on that limb and take that leap of faith to go into your purpose, driven life outside of your career. As we talk about passion versus paycheck. I need this paycheck to cover my expenses, to cover my bills. Sorry, that was
that was a praise break.
That's good.
That's hilarious. That was very funny.
No, I got it. It was a mosquito, so I got it.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you. That being said, like, I need this paycheck for a few reasons. I may need to give back to my home life, meaning my parents. I may need to give. Everybody's not in that situation. I may need to cover these expenses. I may need to get out of debt. I got these children that I got to take care of, right? Mm-hmm. So those are potential hindrances from someone leaping out on that faith too. And Kelvin, I'd like to hear your perspective, because you actually jumped out earlier and you had some responsibilities too. But I'm just identifying the fact that knowing your full self is important, because you have those responsibility factors that may be a hindrance to your jumping out there as well.
Mm-hmm. Bridget, did you want to say anything before I speak, or?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, I was just going to say, so for me, it's a gift and a curse, right? So look, my parents instill a whole lot of confidence in me, man. In all of us. I don't know. So my dad, for example, worked at the same restaurant over 30 years. Walked 1.5 miles to work every day and back. You know what I'm saying? We never knew we were poor. You know what I'm saying? We ain't have a whole lot of money. You know, we weren't dead broke, but we ain't have a whole lot of money. We were still living in public housing. You know what I'm saying? But you know, every Christmas we had a bunch of toys under the tree. You know what I'm saying? I had Power Wheels. I had Nintendo 64s and Sega Genesis. You know what I'm saying? We even had an Atari and what was the other joint? I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, point is, we had, you know, you know what I'm saying? Like, we had like stuff. So I never really knew it, but my dad wasn't making a whole lot of money, you know, and my mom was working in early childhood education. She never had a whole lot of money either. But, you know, one of the things that she used to say to me all the time is, you know, you might be from the projects, but that don't mean you got to act like it. You know what I'm saying? So when people say and do things and try to make you feel any type of way, like, who cares what they think, you know? When you know what you're trying to do, you have a plan, you've thought it out, and you know what you're doing is right, and you're not trying to hurt anybody, then you really have nothing to be sorry for, to be ashamed of. So just do it, you know? So that's kind of what that's kind of what I come from. So when it came time to decide what was happening, one of those companies that I was working for was doing something that I felt was very immoral, and it came out to be true later. But I personally was like, nah, I want to be able to sleep at night. I got into banking because I wanted to help people succeed financially, legit.
Right.
And if I felt like I wasn't doing that, I'm not about to ruin somebody's life. That's the most important aspect of life in America, is their finances. So if you're going to force me to ruin somebody's financial life, then I'm going to bow out gracefully and go and do my own thing. Now, with being so confident and trusting my ability to succeed no matter what, I also can't be picky, right? I got to be willing to do whatever it takes to survive. So even though I had responsibilities and I had, things I need to take care of, I'm a full adult. I got rent, I got bills to pay, all that type of stuff, car to maintain, gas, all of that, right? Health insurance, right? I took a bartending job, like by any means necessary, bro. Like if I'm gonna take this while I'm working and I'm building and I'm learning and I'm putting myself in position, I'm going out and I'm gonna get this money one way or the other. Part of that was me wanting to feel. I'd never worked in a restaurant other than McDonald's when I was 14 and I first started. That lasted for 6 months and I quit because I spilled milkshake mix on me and they wanted me to stay on the job. And I said, no, I'm going to change. Fired. I said, okay.
It's my swag. It's my swag.
I'm not trying to walk around all sticky and whatnot. I'm already wearing these khakis and blue jeans and shirts in this 105-degree restaurant. Anyways, point is, other than that, that was my only restaurant experience prior to that. But, I was like, what, my dad passed away. I wanted to feel closer to my dad. So I started bartending. But it gave me an opportunity to kind of people watch because I was acting heavy at the time. So I was getting character development in my head while I was making money and learning how to talk to people, which led to me being good at sales, right? And all of that came from being on the student recruitment team at Hampton and getting over my fear of speaking in front of crowds. Okay. So it all just kind of ties into one another, what I'm saying, as life goes on, and I kind of sit back and I watch myself now and I think, man, I had no idea why I was doing what I was doing. I just knew what I wanted at the time. And God put that want in my heart so that I could pursue that because he knew I needed that skill set. But other than that, that wasn't ever my ultimate goal. And I look at those things and I'm like, okay, yeah, I see why I have the mentality that I have. I see why I have the experience that I have. I see why I wanted to do what I wanted to do at that time. And I see why I want to do it now. But to answer your question, man, it was just whatever I got to do to make it happen. That's what I'm going to do morally. I'm not going out selling drugs, not going out selling my body and nothing like that. You know what I'm
saying? Escort.
By any means.
Right. But yeah, so that's it, man. If I'm gonna take that leap, I gotta be willing to do what I gotta do in order to get these bills paid because they ain't going nowhere and I gotta live.
100%.
But speaking of, I want to talk about fear just for a second because we kind of touched on it earlier. But really, that's the driving force behind why some people are not willing to kind of take that leap or even, commit to, doing what's necessary in order to change their careers. You know what I'm saying? Self-esteem is kind of big on that. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to have a strong self-esteem and you have to be confident and you got to believe in yourself. I mean, it's cliche. If you don't believe in you, then nobody else will. But it's
so true.
You know what I'm saying? It's like if you don't even believe in what you're trying to do, how are you going to convince somebody else to do it? So to believe in you, So my question is, what methods do you guys kind of use to deal with the fear? Whether it's fear of, getting into a new career or just fear in general, you know what I'm saying? Like how do you guys manage that fear?
I would say for me, I do a lot of self-reflection. I take a lot of time kind of thinking about the ways that I am showing up in certain situations. I think about it from the way that how if I'm feeling anxious or afraid or something like or having fear about something where it lands with me physically. So am I tense? Is it in my gut? Am I having health issues? What's going on? Right. So what's going on? So I'm noticing those types of things. And I try to kind of figure out ways to balance those areas, as well as just doing more research, right? Like just learning more about something sometimes helps me to be able to quell some of the fear in the space, especially when it's time to take a major leap. And I think the one of the things that I'm thinking about is about like also being in a space of activating and activation. And so when I think about all of maybe the fears, the little fears that pop up along the way, maybe the little things around self-worth, right? I went through a divorce. That was a huge blow to my self-esteem, right? And I'm still at times having to check, do checks for myself, check myself in that area. But from a spiritual perspective, there's also this idea of that I have power, that I have boldness, that I'm able to bind things, that I'm able to loose things, so sometimes I'm just literally yelling at my fear, whether it be kind of a internal yell, or like sometimes I've had outward battles with my fear. Like I kind of, and I know it sounds very, it's not, this isn't something that's touchable, but for me, I have to really fight through that fear when they come up. But I'll say that right now, there are some things that I am definitely afraid of during COVID, or just in leaving something that's stable, moving into something that I'm more passionate about, right? I'm still dealing with some of those issues. However, for me, from an activation period, this is a perfect time, right? The time is like now, right? The time is ripe. And so I think understanding timing and things like that. When are you in a season of preparation? When are you in a season of maybe things being taken away so that you can be pruned? What season are you in? I think right now I'm actually in a season of actually getting out there and making moves. But again, just kind of noticing, being mindful and being connected enough to myself to know how fear sits with me. How do I deal with it? When do I need to fight? When do I need to not? Like, who do I need to talk to? Things like that. That's just kind of how I approach it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. But I will add that in terms of how I manage it, I think it starts with God, and that faith, and faith without works is dead. I think that's a concept that many spiritual people of faith, Christians, they say it to make it cliche a lot, but they don't actually apply it. So they get it theoretically in the word, but they don't practically apply that daily. The fact that it's one thing to have faith, but what are you doing behind it? What's the work that you're putting in? So I think for me, it begins with God and having that faith and prayer. Prayer changes things. And I'm adamant about that. And so it starts there. But then, Calvin, you hit another point. Confidence.
I'm here.
Yeah, confidence. Your ability to believe in yourself, knowing who you are. I teach I drill that in my kids. I have it on a chalkboard. I have principles to live by and stuff like that. But I talk about self-confidence. And they know, my 4-year-old daughter knows, she can spit it out to you like she's online. She can tell you self-confidence, believing in yourself. And I just make it that simple. And that's important. You need that. But so that God, faith, prayer, but then that self-confidence, and to honestly understand growth, the growth concept that comes with the understanding, like Frederick Douglass said, without struggle, there's no progress. So when you understand, when you're able to have that faith and that relationship to give you confidence, and then grow on top of your own self-confidence and belief in yourself, you're able to understand that growth concept too. Like, okay, well, I see this obstacle or I see this change, this different path, right? And I'm afraid of it. I have fear. However, with God, with my own self-confidence and the understanding of growth, and progress, I can get through this. I can get through this. So God, self-confidence, understanding of growth. There was one other thing, but I forgot what I was going to say. So I'll get to that later. But I think those factors are key for me, and moving forward beyond my fears.
Yeah. I'm very similar. For me, listen, I let go of fear a long time ago. First of all, I always felt bigger than I actually am. So, I was
Me too. Me too.
I was that guy that was always like when I was okay. So I used to be shrimp in middle school. They used to call me shrimp and stuff because I was shortest guy, but dare not mess with me because I wasn't afraid to fight you back. And I could, what they call it? I could roast now and then. Now they call it roast. Back in the day, you used to call it Joning, but I could roast with the best of them. So, I was never afraid to kind of stand up for myself as a kid. But then now, as an adult, I just lean on. They should have never gave me Philippians chapter 4. I'm trying to tell you, man.
Hey, I can do all things.
So, you know what I'm saying? So for me, it's one of those things where I've never really had a whole lot of fear in me to begin with. But now that I am kind of deep in my faith, it's kind of like, and I literally don't worry about anything, pray about everything. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, all things through Christ who strengthens you, right? So all I got to do is put in the work and believe what's going to happen, and that's kind of the philosophy that I take. I take my faith seriously and I believe in my faith because it's gotten me so far, right? But, most importantly, I can't simply pray, right? You got to put the work in. You got to put some action behind it. So, leveraging good people around you, leveraging the experience that you've had, and leveraging your closing your knowledge gaps. That's the biggest piece. Take the initiative.
That's what I said. Research.
Yeah. Do your research, close your knowledge gaps, man. There are too many resources out here. If you know you want to do something and you don't have the experience to do it, guess what? YouTube.com has just about everything on there. Just about everything. Now you gotta make sure you're considering your source, right, and find the best sources available. But I mean, it's a free education on YouTube University. That's how I learned to become a cinematographer, right? And don't be afraid to jump out there and do it. Now, goes back to what I said in the beginning, and these are kind of my final thoughts, right? You have to know yourself, right? If you're if you're like me and you're the out of the frying pan, into the fryer kind of person, then trying to start your own business or pursue your passion while you're working for someone else is never going to work. It's just not, because whatever I'm doing, I'm trying to be the absolute best at it, and I'll do whatever it takes to be the best at it. So even if I'm doing a job that I don't like, I'm still going to try to be the absolute best at it because I don't like to lose. So I can't do two separate things of that magnitude at the same time. Yeah. So for me, it's more so about putting myself in position financially to be able to maintain, understanding that I might take a hit in the short term, but knowing that I'm willing to do whatever it takes within the reasons within the law, in order to pay the bills and whatnot. So yeah, it's a calculated risk. I never just jump out there blind. I do my research, I prepare, and then I surround myself with the right people, and then I go. That's how I choose to do it. But if you're not that type of person, and you don't mind it taking a little bit longer for you to get where you want to be, then definitely I would recommend, doing your research, getting your taking your lumps on somebody else's dime, you know what I mean, so to speak. You know what I mean, so to speak. How many different but anyway, but yeah, so just kind of take your time, still save up your money because you're going to need it at some point. Like, you know, but try to do it at the same time. And I think, yeah, I think that's the best way to approach it if you're not the out of the frying pan, into the fire kind of person. So that's the best I got for you, man. Either go all in or pace yourself. One of the two.
Yeah, I'm definitely not the frying pan fire person. I'm definitely more of a calculated risk, somewhere in the medium risk range. But what I won't sacrifice is a paycheck for my passion and my purpose. And so I like to align anything that I'm doing is centered around my passions and my purpose. So there's literally no sacrifice there. Or there's no negotiation there. So if it's something that I'm working on, whether it be at my 9 to 5 or whether it be something that I'm working on business wise, it's going to be literally the thing that I'm purposed to do. And so I think as you begin to, my final thought would be like, as you begin to connect with yourself and understand, you know, what your purpose is and kind of noticing your purpose in the micro moments of your life, in when you're connected to things that you love doing the most, is then begin to align everything that you're doing in that space, because it really creates a space of freedom where you can operate as your best self and you can really leverage the timing piece. Right now, I kind of am in a place, I'm low risk. God knows me, right? He knows that I'm a more moderate risk type person. So he's been able to align all of my experiences to be part of my purpose and to fuel that purpose. Now I'm at a space from an activation standpoint where the timing is ripe and it's perfect right now. So for somebody who may be more like my personality type, those would be my kind of parting comments.
Yeah, no, hey, you reap what you sow. Hey, I saw something the other day online talking about, you know, once you plant a seed, you don't get your harvest. That takes work. That takes time. So you reap what you sow. In terms of my final comments, I definitely say, or my recap, kind of what we just talked about, getting over that fear and that doubt. And the element of risk is important, but knowing yourself is key too. So in me knowing myself, I know faith, self-confidence, growth, and the other thing that I wanted to mention was strategy. And Bridget, that comes from you. So faith, self-confidence, growth, and then strategy. You got to strategically prepare yourself and strategically sustain moving forward. Aligning your purpose and your passion, it's key. It's important. You're going to get there. Take your time, live through your journey. Your journey is your journey, and it's worth it. If you so happen to enter a career prior to like your entrepreneurship or your ownership, I just say, please gain that experience at the same time, or gain other experiences at the same time or concurrently, and use your paycheck to literally fund your future business or invest in yourself, basically. So in my experience and the way that I operate, I don't want to, and this is why I haven't left, so it could be looked at fear or strategy, where I'm not going to, my goal is to replace a paycheck at the same level or more. So I don't necessarily want to lose a paycheck. So I want to replace that paycheck. And then leverage your experience, your network, and your paycheck to build your purposeful passion and your legacy.
Yeah. Listen, I like it. I feel like if you didn't know how to do it before, you got a better idea, at least where your mind needs to be before you take that leap, you know. Be willing to put the work in, make sure you're passionate and purposeful, you know, in your approach. And you know, don't sacrifice paycheck if you don't have to. Look, that's coming from me.
Yeah.
The fire guy.
What?
I need money. Need money.
That's coming from me. Don't sacrifice your paycheck unless you absolutely have to. Me, I had to, but you didn't have to. But I prepared for it. So
there you go.
You know. This has been another episode of By Any Means. I appreciate you too. Again, you guys are amazing. I hope this helped. Next week, we're going to try to talk about, we're trying to get some people who are like, they're thoroughly in it, just kind of very successful, and get them to come on and talk about what they've been doing to kind of get into where they are. And, believe it or not, some of the people who we may have on, they are successful and they still have their jobs. So, there's many different ways you can do this. What's most important is that you own your own. So without giving away too much of what's going on next week, again, I want to thank Bridget and Derek for coming on.
Yeah.
You guys are amazing. This has been another installment of By Any Means, the podcast. We will be live on Wednesday. Okay? Live on Wednesday. Come and tell us what you think, the steps that you're taking to walk in your purpose and turn your purpose and your passion into a paycheck. We want to know, okay? Yes. We want to know, because if we can help you, we can. Hey, listen, maybe we'll give you a platform, right? You never know. So come and talk to us. All right? Peace out. Have a good night, guys.
Night.